All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular board meeting of the Central School District 13J for December 1st, 2025. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I will lead it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you want to go through the agenda?
Yes, so this evening we'll have communication from the floor to start off. Then we have two standing reports, our annual FTE staffing report, a short data report focused on attendance and discipline for November. I have several first readings of policy to share with the board. I do have a quick state revenue update because we did have the December revenue forecast come out. We will then go into the board report, consent agenda. We do have one business agenda item. It's just one of our grant agreements for the new biennium. And then we will spend time in executive sessions. Hopefully it won't take more than a half an hour this evening. And that is it.
Very good, thank you. Any communication, any requests? No? All right, we'll move on to standing reports, personnel.
All right, so joining us this evening is Executive Director of Human Resources, Brian Flannery, to share with the board our 25-26 staffing report and the 5-year trends that go with that. And again, that is linked into your agenda.
Good evening. Am I talking loud enough? Okay, good. Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so we have, and I think you received this previously, we have the staffing over the course of the previous 4 years and this year. One of the things that you'll want to keep in mind though with the numbers here is if this is the first time through for you to see this report, the numbers of FTE are in the parentheses and the number of actual body staff are right before that. We do a lot by how much FTE we have. Is everybody familiar with FTE? Anybody need me to talk about that? All good? Okay. And the other thing to keep in mind with the differences between this year and previous year is that last year we had a high number of unfilled positions. And those unfilled positions we had being covered in part at times by contracted staff externally. And so I added a slide since the slide that I sent out to you all so that I can show you kind of a comparison of where we're at from last year to this year when it comes to those unfilled positions, and you'll be able to see kind of the impact. So as you're looking at these numbers, you're going to see that the numbers didn't go down as much as we would have anticipated from some of the cuts from last year. The reason being is that it got offset by the fact that we hired a lot more internal, and we have at this point 0 contracted externally staff other than what we've done for many years with WESD. Okay, does that make sense? So the first numbers are here on ACEs. You can see that they're relatively the same. Some of the up number though here too on ACEs would be there was a movement of the behavior program moved over to ACEs. And so there's some additional staffing that came with that, particularly in the classified area. Okay, next slide. IES, again, relatively the same numbers. We again had more staff coming in from non-contracted change there. It's kind of boring.
And just to remind the board, we do have at each of the schools specific special education programming. So again, they used to be only at a couple of schools. Now we have dispersed that, and every school does have some programming specific to special education. It's going to be both classified and potentially licensed. So again, there's some of that could be in the licensed staff as well. But again, as Brian said, most of that could be in classified.
Yeah, majority of differences in numbers you're going to see in classified. Just roughly to tell you, there were uh, somewhere, I think at the height of what we had contracted for the classified last year externally, I think it was around 25 to 30 that we were contracting externally, which is a huge number. And this year right now, there's 0, and we have only 3 openings compared to where we were last year. So that's a huge swing. And the SPED team and the buildings worked really hard over the summer to get all of our positions, both classified and certified, closed and staffed as much as possible before the year started. And we had greater success. So that was great. So again, not any huge changes in IES. Same with MES, not large changes there. And we can go on to the next one. TMS, not large numbers.
And again, we did a little bit of shifting with special education. Again, we've moved some programmings around
Yep.
at the secondary levels also. So again, some of those shifts of those numbers impact that.
You can go on to high school, please. Similar numbers again for the high school. And then if you go on to the district office, one of the things you're going to see is the district office number is up, but it's in particular areas. It's in both licensed staff and again, our classified. We're down both in administrative staff at the district office by 2 and FTE and confidential supervisory by 1. Part of the increase in classified and licensed staff, particularly in licensed staff, have to do with the fact that last year we had hardly any SPED staff that were not contracted last year. And we had a lot of open positions in special education staff as far as district-wide support. We had, this year, we were able to add Julie's school psychologists and SLPs, I think, or just the school psychologists, I think. The SLPs, we still are working with WSD, but for the first time for a while, I think, and Julie can tell me about how long it's been, but we were able to get school psychologists that we were able to hire firsthand. So that was really exciting and a great thing for us. So that's where you're going to see some of those increases, plus the additional classified staff that are supporting district-wide and that are no longer contracted externally. So if we go to the next slide, gives you overall numbers. Just kind of bear that out. We have some down. And the other thing is a contributing factor as far as when you're looking at the FTE is that one of the ways that we were cutting going into this year is that we cut hours back for classified staff. And so for particular classified staff with the IAs, so instructional assistants went in some cases from 8 to 7 or from 7.5 to 8, 7.5 to 7. And that was a way for us to maintain a higher number of staff, but be able to absorb some of the cuts that we needed to do last year. And then go to the next slide, the vacancies. That's just the website, but the next one after that. You can see that we do have an elementary opening right now, and we have 3 special education on the license side. And so we're still working on closing those. We have a couple leads on a couple of those positions. Speech language pathologists will continue to probably see that as something that we're going to have to work with our WSD partners to close that. And then if you look on the classified side, you'll see that the one thing of note here is this, again, the special education instructional assistants. We have 2 there. And I'm going to ask you to go to the next slide. And the next slide, if you look over there, you can see that I didn't do a real fast, I did kind of a fast count, but you're looking at 20 to 30.
That's the one you added, is
That's the one I added. So,
we can't see the.
oh, you can't see the screen.
so-
Oh,
No.
okay, I'll read it out to you. So there's
Yeah, I can't go up there.
1 at MES, there's 9 at IES, there's 3 at ACES, 6 at TMS. District wide, there's 1 at TMS, additional 3 as far as SPED IA3s, and a bilingual IA So another additional bilingual. So we have a lot of open positions that we had this time last year in the classified, but we're fortunate enough to have gotten very close to being fully staffed in those. And a couple of the ones that we have right now are recent. And so hopefully that we'll be able to people that have made decisions to go elsewhere for various reasons. And so we're hoping to be able to close those as well. And so making a lot of progress too on the side that has to do with license. This time last year, there was 13 that were either unfilled or we were working with contracted services to do, as opposed to 3 this year. So we're pretty happy about that and about the work that everybody's done to support that. Any questions?
Did we do any reporting on retention rates?
On retention rates?
Like, yeah, like for classified and for licensed staff?
We can definitely.
No, if that's something that the board would
Yeah.
like, we can start to add that in and total number of years. You probably do it by classification and just average of
Mhm.
years. Probably be the easiest way for us to do that. We do have groupings, especially on the classified side, whether it's instructional assistants or admin assistants, that we
Right.
probably could get an average
Yeah. that
in
would-
each of the areas. If that's something that the board would like in this report in the future, we can do that. And we can even get it in a Friday report as a follow-up.
The other thing we can do, because we're working on right now, is we're looking into next year and that we're always looking at what seniority lists and where we're at, and that list itself will generate and be able to show how many years the people that we currently have staffed are there too. I think that'd be a good way of looking at it as
Yep.
well. Because in some of those cases, we're gonna have people that have been here for a while, but there's also been cuts that have happened here and there over the past few years that would can be attributed to some of the retention too.
Right.
So we can come back with both of those. I can probably good numbers for last couple of years
Mhm.
and this year. It historically might be hard to go back too much
Right.
further than that,
Right.
but we can give back for a couple of years at least.
Nice. Thank you.
Thanks.
Other questions? I think the biggest thing also is 2 years ago, we just saw a significant swing in special education. Obviously, that's leveled out a little bit. I say that generally, but we always are watching that because we do get students that are, again, enrollment comes in and out. So we're
It-
continuously watching that.
If you were to look at our percentages 3 years ago, hovering at about 18 or 19% of our staff were special education. If you look today, it's around 26%. So it was a pretty significant jump, about 7-8% jump for us over just the past few years. And that's roughly, when you think about that, it's over a quarter of our staff are special educations.
Thank you, Brian.
At least-
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your work.
All right, we're going to switch and
Data report,
Yep.
attendance and discipline.
and I'm excited to share this with you. So once Emily tells me she has up the slides, I will go. Okay, so we are going to review, as I said, just one of the things we're trying to do every meeting, and we will do this every meeting, is to give you at least attendance and discipline reports for where we are. I think it's just a good metric for us to be able to share with you monthly how we're doing in those areas. And then the other ones, such as, again, in January or February, depending on when they'll release it, you'll get to have an update on graduation rates. As we get to end of semester, we'll give you the 9th grade on track because we have the total credits that students have earned at the end of the semester. So, but at least monthly, we want to put that in front of you. I will say, obviously, we've talked about state assessment and some of that things. I think the really big win for us as a school district, and it was shared in our press release, is that Talmadge is no longer in the targeted area, which is great. I think the harder part is the high school is in comprehensive, which Again, I have great trust in what they're going to do, and so I do not think that that will be there for that long. I think there's just been some things over the last couple of years that we've had to work through. So that's, again, some of the hard news, but exciting news also for Talmadge and some of the work that they've been doing, and we're starting to see what that happens. So we'll continue to do this monthly, at least with attendance and discipline, and then adding in the other pieces. As I've shared with you all also, we may start to, we're going out and have had our first community chat. And so we're starting to get some feedback in regards to the strategic plan and some of the data. As I've shared with you in the Friday reports, we are going to see some shifts with accountability. And so we're working through that. And we'll come and share a little bit more with you in the 15th of just sort of the direction and what we're looking at and getting feedback from the community, which has been, we have only done one group, but it was really good feedback. And so I'm hoping that as we go through this with different community groups, that we'll get this similar or other thoughts to help us really look at our strategic plan and the accountability that is going to come with not only what we're already doing, but now that's going to be accountable to the state from a state perspective. So if you go to slides 3, just as a reminder, this is our mission statement, which really guides the work that we are doing and what we're trying to do here in Central School District. Next slide for me, please. Central School District has a strong strategic plan. I know I've said this to you all the time, but again, it's focused on student growth and achievement, family engagement, community partnership, and staff leadership and continuous improvement with clear longitudinal metrics, which is what we call how we measure our progress. And this document is what we call our strategic scorecard. So again, tonight we're going to review the following metrics, again, specifically discipline and our attendance from September through November. So we're going to start first with attendance. And then I'm going to have her go to the performance goal. So again, this slide, we continue to focus monthly on this. Our specifically regular attendance. This slide is our overarching metric goal specific to attendance. Again, we're focused on really 3 areas: overall, where we are, students experiencing disability, and students economically challenged. So if we go to the next slide, this is our overall attendance. So as you can see on the left side, you will see our current September and October and November regular attendance data in blue. You can see that our November data is 69% and a 6 percentage point increase from the previous year. That is a huge win. It's, again, we want those up in the 70s, but that is a significant gain for us compared to last year. So that's our overall data. On the next slide, you will see our students with disabilities, again, going left to right, September, October, November. In November, we are up 9 percentage points from the previous year for our students experiencing disabilities. Again, huge win. Students coming to school. Again, that really working on the strategies, which I'll talk about here in a minute. And then lastly, for our students who are economically disadvantaged, we also saw a 7 percentage point increase from the previous year for November. So again, having most of these 3 areas out really moving in a positive direction. Again, as I said, if you look overall, we were flat in September, but we have gained through October and November, and buildings are working extremely hard, and communications with families and students and just activities are doing and making sure that people understand how important it is to come to school as we continue to focus on attendance. So here, if you go to the next slide for me, please. Here again are our 25-26 strategies and our action steps in place across the district focused on regular attendance. Again, our goals are pretty clear. We continue to establish welcoming environments within our buildings, developing strong classroom engagement strategies, and then solid communication with families on the importance of attendance. And there's great incentives going on. I know even a handful we're going to talk next month about the classroom enrichment grants, and I saw some of the grants that were received. Some of that is tied to attendance. So that's just fun to see some of the approaches that our teachers and our staff are doing across the district overall focused on attendance. So again, wanting to be in the 70s, right? But again, having those gains compared to what we were last year in November is a pretty significant win for us. So any questions about what we're doing on the attendance side? Okay, we're going to jump into discipline. And again, we have 2 years of really good solid data. We have shifted where our discipline has been, and so we continue to clean that up. The first slide is our overarching metric goal specific to discipline. And again, as a reminder to the board, because we are looking at comparison from the 21-22 school year, that during that year, we had a total of 620 suspensions across the district. So that's just a starting point as we continue to look at discipline. So the first slide shows our discipline K-12 for all students. To the left, again, you can see our current September, October, and November discipline data in blue. Again, for November, we were 4 suspensions less than last year. Again, 8 percentage point decrease. So that's a positive. You will see, I will share these numbers. Again, a lot of times when we pull numbers, sometimes principals have not gotten in their data yet. And so you will at times see a little bit of a shift. So there were a couple differences in October because again, we got those in and then we will readjust the data. Because when we pull the data, it's at that moment in time. We're always doing cleanup and making sure we have the most, especially Ann Beerworth does an excellent job of working with Jill Love and making sure that as we go, we're catching everything and making those adjustments. Because again, principal puts in a suspension, even though they put it in November, it's an October suspension. So we're going to go back and fix that data to just make sure we have clean data to being able to share. So again, you can even do that with attendance. Sometimes when we pull attendance, it'll shift the next day again overall. So that's why we only give it to you at the end of the month. So that's again something that we're continuing to work with our buildings, making sure we can get it in and update it as quickly as possible. Next slide is our, discipline for our male students, because again, that's one of the areas that we're trying to decrease. You'll see again, our current September and October, November data, and the November trend for male student suspensions was flat compared to last year. So again, not higher, a little bit higher, one specific, but again, at least we're flat and not moving in the other direction, which is a good thing. So lastly, just here, the district's strategies and action steps in place across the district focused on decreasing suspensions. Again, some of these strategies align with our attendance strategies and action steps. Schools continue to teach and reteach. I will tell you, there was a lot of that going on today. We were gone for a week. And so there is a lot of reteaching specifically at the elementary, but I even know at all the buildings, there was reestablishing of expectations and processes within the buildings throughout the school. And then we continue to support the social emotional learning groups with our counselors, our behavior support staff, and our school-based mental health associates. So that just gives again, our action steps when we meet in August and we are meeting with administrators and they're getting feedback from their staff. Again, these are continuing overarching strategies. Everybody's obviously using different strategies in their classroom, but really we are trying to focus on these areas to make sure that we're being consistent. Lastly, and we'll share this out, we're about to get communication out. We have worked really hard to build a code of conduct policy handbook for parents. One of the things that came out of our parent caregiver survey was lack of consistency K-12 in how discipline is administered. So we have built, I would say, Mr. Flannery as well as Mr. Clark and our building principals have done a really good job of giving us feedback. It's lengthy, but it gives in details of what levels of discipline, how, is that teacher taking care of it in the classroom or potentially administrative, but not moving into any type of suspension expulsion. So we will have that. We're working on a press release right now to get out to families for a first look, and then that will go into implementation overall use in January. Principals have been using it as a guide generally, but again, it's going to be launched and shared with families so they'll have clear communication on what that looks like moving forward. So that's also something that's coming forward as we talk about discipline. So we're excited to be able to have that to just be a guiding point for both families and then obviously our administrators as we continue to work through and decreasing our discipline across the district. So questions for me or anyone else here that's with us tonight? Because I know Brian can come up and ask any, or hopefully can answer most of the questions tied to the code of conduct. Okay. All right. So a couple of policy updates, and as a reminder to the board and community, as we do a first reading, this is informational only. And then if there's any questions or concerns that we need to make some changes, we can do that and then bring it back to the board for a second reading. So I'm going to go through a couple of these. A lot of these are just updates, small updates. We like to call those, but again, we're also combining some, there's new policies, and so we're eliminating some and adding some of what was in the old into the new. So the first policy that we're looking at is IGBB. It's tied to talented and gifted. And I will say Dr. Jackson has done an excellent job of jumping in and helping us. Again, we have a plan, but really moving in that direction to make sure that plan is in full effect and has built some additional things to help support our families that potentially do have talented and gifted students. So there's some additional rule changes passed for talented and gifted programs. You'll see that in the gray. Because of that, as a result, OSBA policy staff worked to reduce the number of policies and administrative rules to 2, because there used to be like 4 different policies. So essentially, IGBB and IGBBC have been merged. And so we're in the process with the adding of IGBB, we will delete IGBBC. And then again, that's the revision. And then the AR will go to IGBB AR. Okay, so that's sort of how that works. So the second one that's in the agenda is the deletion of IGBBC. So we have to do both. So we're adding in a new one, and then we're required to, in a first reading, delete the old. So this policy will be removed and it will now turn into IGBB. So I'm going to pause there. Does that make sense to everybody? I don't want to move forward because again, at times we're deleting and making and revising new ones. So it's really encompassing both now. And teaching and learning has been a big part of that. They've reviewed it. Emily's worked very closely with them so we can make sure that we have everything that we need to support our talented and gifted planning and programming. And there is no funding for this, just so everyone's clear.
So IGBB is a condensing of IGBBC and what other one?
IGBB, correct? Yeah, I'm looking at her. So we had 2 and now it's melding into 1.
Okay.
So we literally had 2 policies and 2 AR, so 4 total.
Gotcha.
We're narrowing it now down to 1 policy and 1 AR,
Okay.
which again makes total sense. Yeah. Because sometimes that does happen where we have multiple policies in the same area. So, perfect. Thank you, Em.
Thanks.
So what's in our packet is the 2 policies separate,
Correct.
and next time we'll see them merged.
Well, the gray is what's merged into it. That's what they pulled. So gray's everything new, which again, from looking at it is what's pulling from IGBC plus as well as some of the new rules that have come with the talented and gifted tied to rulemaking in the state. And then next time we'll give you the full one, and the deletion one will still be there, but at some point that will be removed from our policy website. Okay, the next one is JHCA immunization, and school sports participation, concussion, and brain injuries. So the Oregon legislature adopted House Bill 3007 in 2025, outlining steps that must be taken when information regarding a student's concussion or other brain injury is provided to the district. The State Board of Education provided additional rules in adopting OAR 581-021-3007, which is all the rulemaking tied to this, particularly with the concussions and the brain injuries. So a couple things. This is another like double coding that we're trying to clean up on the policy end. So OSBA is recommending removing the double coding of JHCA-JHCB. And that will turn into, because that used to be participation, concussions, immunization, all types of different things. There used to be information in there regarding eye and vision and dental screening. That's removed because that's no longer in the board policy. That really is in our health service plans. So there's some movement of those types of things. And then this policy has been, I mean, our nurses are always involved in this, but this policy specifically because of the school sports participation and the concussion and brain injury were reviewed by both our athletic directors to make sure we weren't missing anything from their perspective. And so they've done a review of this and want to move forward with it. So we're doing some training in January and February with our administrators. Again, our nurses are already doing a lot of that, but we do need to continue our some of that training with our principals, just to be aware of it from that perspective. But a lot of times we get that information from the nurses when students come back in to school. So again, sort of a mixing of the two policies and turning it into one. Any questions on that? As I like to say, the blending and braiding. Normally I say that with funds. This is the blending and braiding of policies now, for at least this month. Okay, so the last one is specific, and you're going to see it because it is going to be some housekeeping and moving into a new policy. So EBCA will be a new policy called safety threats. Okay. The policy defines the communication expectations for safety threats with both community and staff. And what I'll say is, for the most part, we have been doing this. We had an incident this last year. We didn't handle it well. The communication wasn't great, and it caused us a little bit of issue. So when we saw this policy, it is something that, again, now really makes it clear what we will need to be communicating, which again, for the most part, we do that, but it makes it pretty clear on what and when we will communicate those out. So the guidance has been requested by, this guidance was requested by community members through the Climate and Culture Survey. Again, that feedback form, as well as we've heard that at board meetings prior to this year. This information about when and what will be communicated in a safety threat. And again, it's only certain ones, so I want to be clear about that. It's going to be if we have a lockdown, if we go into secure, if we have any type of evacuation, or if we have to do any shelter in place. So those 4 areas, then within 24 hours, we have to generally share out what took place. Again, share as best as possible the information. Again, we're not going to go if there's things where students are involved or we have personnel things, obviously that's not going to be a part of that. You all have seen how we share out safety and security, or we work with the building principals and they share that out to their building. It will be dependent. I want to be clear about that. If we have a lockdown I'll be honest, we will probably be sharing that out across district, but for other ones, sometimes that only goes out to that school community. So there will be some consistency of who gets that information. The one thing I will tell you is that we do go into holds. You heard that it's part of our emergency action plan. So we have what's called a hold. Sometimes we have to do a hold in the building because of a medical emergency. Again, that could be a student or a staff member. But holds are, I'd like to say, we have a behavior incident in the building. Sometimes we go into a hold in the hallway. Those types of things, because they happen more consistently, are probably, they're not going to be communicated out. It is specific when we have the larger safety and security threats within the district that we would communicate out, again, either district-wide or specifically to the families of that school. So that is going to be a new policy that we will be putting in place. And again, based off of feedback from families and our culture and climate survey.
And this one, did the model of it come from OSBA? like
Yes.
The other models?
Yes.
Okay.
But again, Director Clark's looked at it. We've had a
Right.
couple different people look at it. Again, a lot of we have had some family members come in or parents come in and give us information. And so we've taken that and again, making sure that this policy addresses some of those pieces that were brought up in the last couple of years.
And probably a silly question, but what are the two asterisks behind the threats? Like, usually seems like when there's.
There should be a
like a
footnote.
Beyonce or- I don't see it.
Let me go there real quickly.
I was looking through the other documents, but
Let me look.
Where are they, Melanie? What are you looking at?
it's in the title of it. It says
Yeah.
safety threats and then it's followed by two asterisks and I just usually follow those somewhere else. You can't find where they go to.
Hold on, let me.
Again, at the bottom right of the policy for some reason.
It's the same code, though.
I don't know. We'll
That's what I
follow
was
up on
looking
that.
at.
It
I'm
might
not
be
sure-
silly, but I
I'm
just.
not sure why you are correct. Usually they do have a footnote, so we will do a follow-up with OSBA.
And the only other one that's got those is the policy that's going away.
Yeah.
That Talented and Gifted also has.
We'll follow up.
Oh, I see what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a little
There may
odd.
be a reason.
They might be nothing, but I just.
could be.
am
We'll
trying to
follow up and
follow
make sure we put that in the
We
Friday
follow those.
report. Yep, Friday
Thank you.
report.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then two more, EBCB, which is emergency drill procedures. Again, this is just some housekeeping language, including removing the tsunami drills because we are far enough away. So we are not required to do those. If we lived on the coast, that is not an option. We would be required to do that. So again, you'll see in there, one of the key things that we do in there is you can see the first month of school, every building has to do a lockdown drill. So again, that's just one of the pieces that we make sure we do within the first month of the school. So that's just, again, some housekeeping pieces for that policy. And then lastly is EBC-EBCA, Emergency Procedures and Disaster Plans. This is replaced by changes in EBCA and EBCB. So again, some combining of things for the policies. I know, exciting stuff. Emily gets excited because she doesn't mind deleting policies. Neither do I. Combining policies and making it a little bit easier because we have,
Yeah.
again, up to 200 at times. We do. And that's just trying to make it easier for everybody to be able to use it because we do have a lot of policies in school districts as we need to.
Well, deleting the tsunami is a good idea.
Yes,
If the tsunami can make it to the coast range.
Yeah.
Us,
we're in
the
trouble.
whole world's in trouble.
So again, no action today unless there's any other questions in regards to the policies. We'll move forward with it. And if you do have something that comes up and we'll follow up in the Friday report about the safety footnote once we get that information from OSBA. And then last thing from me is I just want to give a state funding update since we had our last board meeting in November. We did have the December economic and revenue forecast that was released. So I just want to highlight a couple things. I know the board, you have seen this, but just to share out community-wide for those that do watch board meetings to give a little bit of update. So to begin with the positive news, the net general fund and the lottery resources, which is where a lot of our funding comes from for the state school fund, we're up $318.8 million from September. So that is a positive thing. However, we are still down $635.9 million in the state budget.
Oh,
So again, based on our legislative briefings, it's estimated that the state budget deficit is again closer to that 600 million. And then as we've shared, I wanted to say I shared in August with you all, we had previously projected that to be 918 million. And again, remember this is mitigating some federal laws, HR1 implementation of that and other things that the state legislature is still working through. They do have an ending balance fund of 350 million, but again, they're holding that because of the HR1 implementations. Again, we had a very, and I don't even want to say it out loud, but I will. We had a very low wildfire cost this past summer. That is always part and built in. And so they're always setting money aside to make sure that if we do have the crisis like we did in 2020, that we have the funding to be able to support communities. So all of those are still moving pieces as it relates to the state budget. Currently, there is no corporate or personal kicker forecast for the 25-27 biennium. And I'm just going to do a reminder to everybody, the corporate and personal kickers are paid out at the end of the biennium. So we're all going to get that, or some of people will get that this year. For that personal kicker or corporate kicker is specific to the 23-25 biennium. So at this moment for the 25-27, there is no personal or corporate kicker at this moment. The corporate activity tax, which funds the Student Success Act, the student investment account, was down 3.1 million. Again, positive still because the legislature has a reserve of 100 million to be able to support the grants that fall into that. I think key takeaways from this revenue forecast is it's good news, but we will need to continue to advocate during the short session, which is going to begin in February. It's going to go fast. We know there are going to be lots of competing priorities in the state: houselessness, mental health, healthcare needs, and there's still federal uncertainty. So we have to work through that as a state. There will still be a state budget shortfall, and the state has one more critical forecast, which happens in February of 2026. So that will be when the next revenue forecast comes out. This will be the one where they then figure out how they're going to balance the budget if they are in a deficit. So again, I'm going to continue to update you in the Friday reports as I have been, both on the state and federal. So this is a win, but there's still some big pieces because we are, again, with the implementation of some of the federal things, as I've shared with you, Medicaid and other things do impact overall state, which we have to just continue to watch overall. So again, positive news. At one point we had a swing of 400 million. At one point they had said we may be 300 in the hole, we may be flat, we may be 100 up. So to be 300 and change up in the revenue forecast, that's a win. So that's exciting news, even though we have work ahead of us. So questions about just where we are statewide or federal, although I don't have a lot of answers for federal funding at this moment.
when's the next update expected then?
February, we expect it'll be probably February 4th is when it will
Okay,
be
when we're
released.
in start budget
Yep.
season.
When we start budget.
Okay.
And then, although we're already starting budget.
I mean,
Yeah,
budget committee.
yes, definitely. From that. And then, like I said, we're pulling in, we're going to be sharing with the budget committee opportunity to come join us on the 15th so we can go over a few things with them. I will say the state has reserves. There are two reserves, the Educational Stability Fund and the Oregon Rainy Day Fund. So there is money in both of those. Both of those accounts, one account holds 1.2 billion. The other account holds 2.1 billion. But those are constitutional how they're triggered and what that looks like are pretty detailed in how we would have to do that. And it's it's a 3/5 vote for one of them specifically. So again, there are those abilities. I think that depending on the revenue forecast that comes out, I think these two reserve funds could become a conversation that we'll need to have and advocate for if we get to that point. I believe they both backfill, so if we use it, there's a mechanism in the Constitution that says they have to replace it, and there's a process to do that. So again, I think those are still some big questions depending on what the next revenue looks like. And then how we may need to, or what that conversation may be as a board, and then obviously boards across the state and superintendents to potentially access those funds. They are specifically for education.
It's probably not a short session thing that'll happen, but are there, when you're looking at how K-12 are talking about, we know there's competing needs like houselessness and mental
Mhm.
health, but I think the big intersection often is education. You know, children are affected by
Yeah.
all of these things. Is there a conversation or an appetite for how schools often become a landing point for discovering mental health and discovering houselessness issues? And are there ways of shifting funding into K-12 or combining funding?
Well, that, I think what you just said is what we say to them all the time,
Mhm.
is we're really one of the front resources, I'll just say it that way, in support of all of that. So you want us to do more, but give us less, right? That's the bigger conversation that we're having or will be having with legislators in that, because again, I'll just give an example. We work with resources if their students are needing food, right? We have a resource page, right? All of those pieces at times go through us in different forms or fashion. And so that is probably going to be one of the strategies that we talk through to say, hey, just remind everybody, we do all this already. And so if you continue to cut it, you're going to still have other issues when it comes forward. So,
Okay.
yeah. I think that's going to be one of the key
Figured you had
strategies
it.
we are going to need to focus on because of what we do already. Good question. Any other questions about finances? Okay, that's it from me.
Board report, the board will meet for PLC on December 15th from 4 to 6:30 PM. We'll be meeting here at Henry Hill District Office. I will not be in attendance, so Susan will conduct that meeting and preside there. The next regular board meeting is January 12th at 6:30 PM, the second Monday of the month, 2026. Moving on to the consent agenda. I just want to draw special attention to the statement at the beginning of there. I'll just read it out loud. The consent agenda is meant for items of a routine nature to pass as a whole without discussions. Should any board member wish to discuss any item on the consent agenda, they remove an item without a vote or motion. So if you have concerns about anything, we don't have to include it in the consent agenda. Not that you do, but just wanted to make sure that that's understood. It's not all or nothing in these consent agenda motions. That being said, I will entertain a motion to approve.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Moved by Melanie,
I'll second it.
seconded by Jan. All those in favor, raise your hand. All right, it is unanimous. Consent agenda passes. Moving on to the business agenda, grant agreement.
Yeah, so each biennium, the board must approve the district's Student Success Act Student Investment Account Grant Agreement. Attached in is our agreement totaling in the amount of $6,444,082.40 for all of those grants that are tied into that. So that's high school success. It's also a student investment account. Our early literacy, I believe, is in there. It's all part of our integrated plan, but we do have to do this separately for the Student Success Act. So I am just looking for the board to approve the 2025 through 27 Student Success Acts and Student Investment Account Grant Agreement.
There's a sample motion in the document. I didn't see one on the agenda.
Nope, just need approval of the grant agreement.
I move that we approve the Student Success Act grant agreement.
Moved by Melanie,
I'll second.
seconded by Susan. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 5, it is unanimous. Motion passes. Moving on, well, let's, shoot, push the wrong button. We'll take a short recess before our executive session.
Yeah.
Give people time to head out.
Do you want to do any board comments? I guess we could flip that. I didn't see that executive session was before that.
Yeah, let's swap. Let's go down to item 9 for board comments. Any board comments?
It's exciting to see the data.
Yeah.
Charts go up. It's nice to see.
And good work on the code of conduct.
Yeah.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, we're very excited. It's been a lot of work, but we think it will be helpful for everyone.
Yeah.
Very.
All right, if there's no other comments, we will take a recess, a 5-minute recess, and then move into executive session when we return.